welcome to this little bookish spring reset video. I'm in my office right now because I'm coming to you from the end of my workday, and I have no plans tonight, and I thought, what better time than now to just catch up and talk to you about books. I also feel like I just need a reset because I've been making nothing but Bridgerton content for the last month and a half, which has been so much fun. If you're here because of any one of my Bridgerton videos, hello, welcome to the club. This is a great place to be. If you like books, if you like sometimes talking about TV shows and movie adaptations of books, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to wrap up all of the books that I've read so far this year, tell you about some of my favorites. We're going to go to the library and pick up a book that I'm really looking forward to reading in the coming weeks. And then I'm going to tell you about what's on my reading radar, what books and maybe some TV shows and movies too I'm looking forward to experiencing in the next few months. So far this year, I have read 12 books. Reading should be for enjoyment and learning, and it shouldn't be about numbers. So we're not going to dwell on the numbers. Okay. Here they are. Actually, no. If I do that, you can't see George. Here's the 12 books I've read so far this year. I have enjoyed all of them at least a little bit. I am not going to go into all of these in depth. Some of them I've already talked about in depth. I just wanted to talk about a couple that have stood out to me. Number one is The Night Circus. It's one of my favorites of all time. I reread it. Do you see this boy? Okay, I reread The Night Circus over the last few weeks so that I could mark it up, so I could underline my favorite parts, so that I could, put little tabs on all of my favorite parts and revisit those when I want to, because I love it and I love rereading stuff, and that's something that I kind of rediscovered last year and also towards the end of the year. I feel like all of these videos I was seeing were all about slowing down, and I like that idea. Slow down, do things more intentionally, and so this was something that was intentional, that was like something for me, I was rereading this because when I love something, I want to come back to it. And I will come back to it. When I am struggling, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to my favorite things. And so now, if I don't have the energy to reread the whole thing all at once, I can at least pick one of these little tabs and just reread that chapter, reread that scene, because these scenes just have so much magic in them, and I love that. And so I wanted to do that so that it's easy for me to come back to. So that was why I reread this, and I had so much fun reading it, and there were things that stood out to me this time more so than the first time. And as I was thinking about that, it reminded me of another book that I have read in the last couple of months. This is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I suggested that we read this in the book club that I have with my high school friends, because one of my friends was getting married this last month, and it was also Valentine's Day and all that. I'm like, why not read a book all about love? So we read it, and also it kind of works out because this is by a Black author, and February was also Black History Month. So support a Black author, read a book about love. It felt like the right fit. Now these essays, these chapters, are they essays? Are they chapters? I don't know. This book is full of stuff about love in a more general sense, not just romantic love. It's about friendships and how to treat your parents and children and family, and how to treat just people in general. I underlined a lot in this book. There was a lot that I agreed with and a lot that I appreciated from this book. There were a few sub-themes, there were a few themes that showed up repeatedly throughout this book that I also agree with. And one is that the harm that the patriarchy has done to society and done to our culture, whether we realize it or not, it has done harm to our culture and to our society. And I agreed with a lot that was said about that. There's also another similar theme about how capitalism and how this need for power and money isn't really helping us feel empathy or love towards other people. And so those were things that I wasn't expecting to get out of this book that I agree with. I understand why they're in a book about love now, having read the whole book. I thought it was interesting. While I agreed with everything, it wasn't quite a new idea. It wasn't this revolutionary, oh my gosh, wow. I think the one thing I would say is that still kind of sticks in my brain is that this is all about love. That she's talking about we need love for other people. We need to have love for other people. And I feel like in recent years, love has been changed out for empathy. We need to have empathy. We need to have compassion. And so I think in that way, it is still a little bit even now, a little bit revolutionary, just saying love instead of saying kindness, instead of saying empathy. So that was something that's interesting to me, an interesting takeaway for that. Now, as I mentioned, this being by a Black author and reading it during Black History Month was kind of a happy coincidence. Another book that I want to talk about and mention here that was not a coincidental choice on my part is Junie. I read this specifically for Black History Month because it is about a young woman who's a slave in pre-Civil War Alabama, and she grows up on this plantation being the friend of her master's, being the friend of her master's daughter. She becomes friends with this young woman named Violet. And so it's about Junie and her complicated situation where she is friends, her friend Violet, who is technically one of her owners, also taught her to read. And so because of Violet, Junie can read. She can escape her life, her worlds, into other stories, into other people's experiences. It's a story about this young girl who knows that it's wrong, that she is a possession of somebody else, but at the same time, at least in the beginning of the book, she doesn't see much of an issue with it because she's able to escape through reading. She is Violet's maid, and Violet allows her just to spend her afternoons reading. They read together and they talk about these stories, and they have so much fun as friends talking about these stories. But then when it comes to the actual work that Junie has to do, she doesn't like it, and so she doesn't want to continue doing it, but she also doesn't know what else there is, what other options she has. And so it's really interesting just seeing her thoughts and seeing where she's at and how that changes throughout the book. There is also this fantastical element in the book where the ghost of Junie's dead sister comes back and begins haunting Junie and trying to encourage her to leave, to escape for real, not just through books, not just through her fairy tales, but to actually get herself out of this situation. That takes multiple actions that Junie has to take, and so you see her begin this journey towards freedom, and with each step she takes, it's kind of scary. There are opposing forces that are working against her, not just externally but internally. She's having all of these conflicting feelings about, maybe it's better just to stay where I'm at and not risk it. So it's very interesting. I really liked how this story was written. I liked that there is this supernatural element to this story, but it doesn't take away from how grounded the story feels. The story still feels so real and so honest while also featuring the supernatural element. I also really like not only Junie's perspective, but also seeing the perspectives of her family and Caleb, who's another slave that gets introduced partway through the book, and seeing what their thoughts are on freedom and trying to get freedom, and what their thoughts are on their situations and how they feel about things. And they're each their own person with their own history, with their own background and experiences in being slaves, and that really shows through. It's just really complex, and I really liked seeing that. It was refreshing to read a book where we had these different perspectives from these different characters, and also it was refreshing because they have reason for that. It's understandable that Junie, at least in the beginning of the book, doesn't want to leave because her family doesn't want to leave, and she doesn't want to leave her family, and also because she thinks she has a friend. She thinks that she and Violet are friends. But what she doesn't understand is because of the power imbalance, if we're going to say something that Bell Hooks would agree with, because of the power imbalance between Violet and Junie, she doesn't understand that they can't really truly be friends. But that she feels like they're friends, right? And so she feels safe. She feels like she can stay there forever. And it isn't until things change that her eyes are opened and she realizes that things really can change in an instant. And because of this power imbalance, Violet isn't truly her friend. And so I thought it was just really, the story was different than other stories seen that are about slaves at the same time in history. And I liked this. It was refreshing to me that it was complicated, and I liked that. I also liked that in the afterword, the author talks about how this was inspired by her own family history and a member of her family and their journey running away from slavery, and that was really interesting to read, and it just gives more meaning and impact to the story. And I don't know, it's a story that's gonna stay with me. for a long time, and I like that. And I'm really glad I read it, and it's gotten me excited and inspired to read other African American literature that I've had on my TBR for a long time. Okay, TV shows. Let's actually do movies real quick, because this is gonna be real quick. Two movies that I have watched this year are these three movies: Zootopia 2, Running Man, and Eternity. Zootopia 2 was like, fine, whatever. Running Man, interesting. I watched it on a plane and it kept me interested. Eternity. This one disappointed me. The first half was funny, and I was actually laughing out loud at some of the antics that were happening in the first half of this movie between the two husbands, right? I was legitimately laughing out loud. And then the second half just frustrated me. TV shows. Let's talk about that. The TV shows I've watched this year are these four: Stranger Things, Percy Jackson, Bridgerton, and Shrinking. The show I do want to spend my time talking about right now is Percy Jackson. After season 1 came out, I was hopeful, but not completely convinced about this new Disney Plus TV show adaptation of Percy Jackson. Let me tell you, season 2, I'm satisfied. I am convinced. I am on the train. There's no going back for me. No turning around now. I'm on the train, okay? I ate up season 2. Seeing other people that I follow on social media and mostly YouTube that were watching the show and seeing their reactions, I'm like, oh, everybody loves the show. Turns out, with some more digging, once the season was complete, I did some more digging, because this is what I do when I like something. I watch or read my favorite parts again, maybe even the whole thing, and then I go on YouTube and I watch literally every review I can find of said thing, whether it's a book or a TV show. Turns out there are actually quite a lot of people who didn't like season 2, which is valid. People have their own opinions, I get that, but I saw somebody say that they thought it was worse than the movies, and I don't agree with anybody who says they don't like it, because obviously I love it, but that especially, I took offense to that, because I'm like, did you see the movies? If you want a show that is 100% word for word adapted from a book, and every single word, every single line, every single thing is exactly the same as the book, then yeah, this isn't your show. But also, I think if you're going to adapt something into a different medium, it's a new medium. You're going to have to make some changes. And so I'm on board with changes as long as those changes are intentional and still convey the spirit of the original book or work. There are changes, but they're intentional. And so to me, I'm not upset by the changes that they made to season 2. I think they were honestly pretty minor, if you ask me. It's a new medium. You have to translate it into this new medium, and in that translation, things aren't gonna cross over one for one, but you're gonna do the best you can. So you gotta kind of think of adapting book into a movie or a TV show kind of similarly. So to me, I thought it was a beautiful translation. I thought it was great and amazing, and I loved it. I ate it up, okay? I am so excited for season 3 to come out in December. So for any of you who are fans of Percy Jackson, like me, get excited, because you better believe I'm going to be doing at least a few videos leading up to Percy Jackson, the release of season 3. So I think that's all I have to say about all of this, about TV shows, about books and movies and everything that I've consumed so far this year. Now is a great time for me to get up off of this floor, eat some dinner, run to the library, get a book, and then we'll come back and I will tell you about the library book and other books that I am going to be reading over the next few months. Hello and welcome back. If it looks like it's a new day, that's because it is. I won't bore you with the explanation. Even after 5 years of making YouTube videos, I still make mistakes sometimes. This is the book that I picked up from the library. I've already started it. This is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I picked this up because I read online recently that it reminded some people of The Night Circus. And so, given that I just reread that recently and I love it so much, I figured it was time for me to pick up this book to see if it actually is similar to The Night Circus in any way. This takes place at the beginning of the 1800s, and it's about these two magicians who are trying to bring magic back to England. At this point in time, magic has kind of gone extinct in England, and they're trying to bring it back, and they have differing views on magic. They kind of approach magic a little bit differently. This almost feels like a prequel to The Night Circus. Just hearing that synopsis, it made me think that like maybe this is the story of those two magicians in The Night Circus. So that's why I picked this up. I'm excited. I've already started it and I'm excited to finish it. So that is the first book on my list. The next book that I know I will definitely be reading is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is a prequel sort of to Divine Rivals. It takes place in the same world but like thousands of years earlier, and it focuses around the gods of the pantheon that is featured within Divine Rivals. So this came out last year, and when it first came out I was a little bit hesitant because I just loved Divine Rivals so much that I wasn't sure that this, like, I was just a little unsure whether I wanted to read a book about the gods that are in Divine Rivals, and so I wanted to wait and see what other people think of it. I have since heard other people who have read it, who have loved it, and I trust their opinions, so I've ordered it for myself, and I'm just waiting for it to come in the mail. I'm excited about it because Divine Rivals was one of my favorite books a couple of years ago when I first read it, so really excited to get back into Rebecca Ross's writing because I like it. It's just beautiful. Her writing style really complements spring. Like, it just feels very springy to me, very flowery, and I like that. Aside from those two books, I've kind of like set this little goal, this little challenge for myself. As I talked about earlier, I read Junie specifically for Black History Month, and I want to kind of continue that same kind of reading intention throughout the rest of the year. A few books that I have lined up for the next couple of months are, next month I want to read We Are the Weather in honor of Earth Day, because it's about climate change and I want to understand climate change a little bit better. I'm hoping that it will also give me some ideas of things that I can be doing better myself to help take better care of the planet that we live on. So I'm going to be reading that next month. In May, I have two books set aside and dedicated for May. One for Mental Health Awareness Month, and that is What My Bones Know. It's about complex PTSD. It's a memoir of this woman's experience understanding complex PTSD and treating her complex PTSD, and so I'm really interested in that. I have a few friends who have read it recently and learned a lot from it, so I would like to read it myself so that I can contribute to the conversations that my friends have had about this book, and I feel like that falls within the mental health umbrella, so I'm excited to read that one. And then another one I'm going to read in May is in honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and the book is The Wayfinder. This book is about a young woman from Tonga who becomes the Queen of Tonga, and I have Tongan heritage, and so I was really interested to hear about this book that is set in Tonga, because I don't hear of many books, especially here in the US, that feature Tongan characters or are set in Tonga. So I'm really excited about this. A family member even was the one to introduce this book to me, so it just feels special to kind of read it for Pacific Islander Heritage Month in May. Those are my like concrete must-read plans for the next few months. I do know I will be reading more than just those books over the next 2 or 3 months, but I am a mood reader, so I don't like to set like really structured TBRs aside from what I just talked about. I like to create what I think of as a reading radar for the season, and so what's on my reading radar for the next season is YA. There are several YA books that have risen to the top of my TBR that I am likely to pick up in the next few months as well. Starting with Holy Terrors. This is the third book in the Little Thieves trilogy. I read the first 2 books in this trilogy at the end of 2025. The first book made it onto my top books of 2025 list, and it is a fairy tale retelling of the Goose Girl, which is one of my favorite fairy tales. So I just loved the first book and also really enjoyed the second book. So I'm excited to finish out this series, hopefully see happily ever after for our characters. And yeah, so that's one of my YA books that I might be reading. Another is Sunrise on the Reaping. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, and it is about the Hunger Games in which Haymitch competes and wins. That came out last year. I've heard lots of good things about it. The movie is coming out this year, which is like crazy to me, but also not crazy at the same time. I don't know. So I want to read the book. Simple as that. Another book that is kind of in the dystopian realm, it's Air by Saba Tahir, and this book is a standalone spin-off to the Ember in the Ashes series by Saba Tahir, which is a fantasy dystopian series in which we have this fantasy world, we have this tyrannical empire, and our main characters in the Ember and Ashes series are trying to bring down this empire and end the tyranny in their world. I read that whole series last year. It made my top books of 2025 list as well. And so I'm excited to see what else is happening in this world after the events of An Ember in the Ashes. The last book in my YA category radar is, what is it? The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a fantasy trilogy that I've heard nothing but good things about. And that's it. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to know. It's been on my TBR for ages now. For whatever reason, right now feels like the right time to read it. I'm going to be honest. I was a little bit intimidated to pick up an R.F. Kuang book because I feel like I've heard really good things about R.F. Kuang for several years now, but never picked up any of her books. The reason I was intimidated and nervous is because a lot of times when I read really hyped up books from TikTok or whatever, I'm not as into it as the people who talk about it on TikTok. So I didn't want to have that experience. I want to have fun reading it. Yeah, a little bit intimidated by R.F. Kuang until I read Catabasis last year, and I really liked it. And if I end up liking The Poppy War as much as Catabasis or any of the other books that I've mentioned that I've already read, I will let you know. You will hear about it. So those are my reading plans for the next few months. I would love to know what kind of mood you are in this spring. What kind of books are calling your name right now? Let me know in a comment down below. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.